Hi there, it's Ina here, and today I want to decorate this little frame of wooden plaque. I found this at Michael's in the kids department, so it's very lightweight, but I think it makes a perfect background for a simple assemblage piece I have in mind. I want to use up some of my artificial flowers who have been decorating my art room forever, and I'm looking for ways to use them up. So after I added a coat to this little frame, I first measure where eventually I want to add this little embellishment piece. And now to my flowers. I started with mud medium, but the flowers and also the leaves are a bit three-dimensional, and I don't know if it's material it's made from. The matte medium just wouldn't work very well for me. So I decided to go ahead and use gesso, as eventually I would cover these flowers anyhow. And it works. It's a little tricky. It takes a little time. I have to kind of saturate them quite a bit and use quite a lot of gesso. But in the end, it sticks really, really well when they're once dry. So yeah, these are some of those pieces I have in my art room, which I'm trying to find ways to use up. I am on a mission to try to use up things which have been laying around for way too long before I get anything new. So this is a good first step. Now I fast forward this, of course, but I also cut a few pieces out because this is pretty much just adding all the flowers. And now while the gesso is still wet, I'm adding some very simple white beads all over mostly the flowers. I'm avoiding the center so that eventually my little embellishment piece has a flat background. So as you can see, gesso was all over my hands, but now I'm clean again. This part is dry, and now I'm adding this little zigzag border. Now that's been a bit stubborn too, because it has some metallic fibers in them. But the tacky glue does pretty well on them when you once get it to where you want it to go. So I am covering all four sides with this ribbon just to give me a little more texture. And then, of course, it needs to be covered in gesso as well. Now, I could have done all the gessoing at the same time, but of course, this little ribbon was an afterthought. And I also add gesso to the edges. And now some color. I start with some glimmer mist, two different tones of gold. And then I also add some teal, and so in between, I use my paintbrush to blend things out a little bit. Now this took me a little bit longer than what you're actually seeing here. I cut some pieces out, basically just spraying few coats, blending, spraying again, and so on until I was happy. Now the edges too get a little spray, and I just blend it with my finger. Now I want to enhance the colors, and for that I use my primary elements pigment powders. And first I use one that's called teal zircon, and it has this really nice rich teal color. By the way, I activated the powder with a solution which is a liquid medium. And now I'm adding another color, and this one is called ginger peach, and it's something between a yellow, orange, rusty color. Very pretty color, very bright. So I'm just playing here, trying to enhance colors, blend things a little bit. And as you know me by now, this is one of my favorite parts. And now I'm adding a little bit of ultra metallic acrylic paint in gold here and there. And then I will do the same thing to the sides, just a little bit, and I'll wipe some of it off with my rag there. And now also some metallic teal color, same step. Now this glimmer mist really messed up my hands, and you can see later. So when you work with it, because it's very pigmented, and you are like me and you make messes, watch out when you get it on your hands. It takes a while to get it back off. So now I add some copper paint, metallic copper paint with a dry brush, very light touch, just to go over all the ridges and bring them out a little more. I really like the way this comes out. I like the look of it. It kind of subdues the colors just a tiny bit, but really brings out the texture. And now to my little piece here. I think it's a clay piece. I also bought that at the clearance section in Michael's. It gets a coat of gesso because I want to change the color on it. And of course, it takes a little bit to dry. And then I add some white pearl metallic paint over it. So I'm using pretty much all metallic paints in my acrylic department here. And then I had this little wooden bird. So I already added gesso and now just some of the teal metallic color I used earlier. Very simply just a coat. Actually, I gave it a couple of coats, but you only see one coat here. And now again, my dry brushing of copper paint. And yes, pardon my dirty hands. I really like the looks the copper gives to these pieces, especially when they're a little bit vintage looking or they have a lot of texture. It's a really nice look, I think. So now I use some liquid pearl. It's also in white. I add a little bit first to the frame all around it, and then also inside just a little bit here and there to give a little shiny highlights on top of those little flowers. All right, let's see. And then I use my big brush marker. It's a brown marker just to do the edge on the bird. And I'm holding it a little bit funny because it was still a little bit tacky and I didn't want my fingerprints on it. And now my tacky glue to glue everything where I want it. Make sure it's in the middle, at least more or less. All right, little measuring. Yep, pretty good. And now the little bird. I want it a little bit to one side, not exactly in the middle. There we go. All right, now at this point, I thought I needed to do something to make the white centerpiece fit in a little better. So I use plenty of matte medium and again the same little white little beads to fill in the centers of these flowers because these flowers were taken apart from a big flower. So they had these flat centers and I didn't want to leave them that way, but neither did I want to paint them exactly like flowers. I wasn't really going for that look. So with these beads, these centers kind of disappear a little bit. And yeah, I think it blends it much nicer. And then again, a little bit of copper there too to kind of yeah, make it match the middle piece. Now the beads were really saturated with matte medium, so the paint sticks pretty easily. And here it looks a little bit dark, but later on in the photos you will see that the beads match pretty well the centerpiece. And now just a tiny bit of liquid glitter, just where the beads are, not much, just a hint, tiny bit on that little embellishment. And I think we are nearly done. Our little matte medium over the little bird just to protect it so it doesn't get scratched up. And yeah, I think this is it. So there's my little piece. Now this was pretty simple. It still has a hanger it came with from the store and I might yet just leave it there or take it off and use something else. So here it is. Sorry, I tend to not show you the whole thing when I lift it up. I need to learn to do better. So it has great texture. I love the colors and I hope you enjoyed this little project. It's very simple, simply to do, quick to do, and fun too. So thank you for coming. Bye bye for now.